Okay, so it's a quick intro to the gut plan. It's takes 12 weeks in total, and it's designed to basically get your gut in shape and get it to tolerate more sports nutrition products. Um, there's kind of two sides to this. One is increased volume of food, particularly on ultras, and being able to essentially try and stop or at least minimize any gut issues or the severity of gut issues. Also, in terms of gut transporters, there's some research in rodent models that larger intakes and gut training will actually help you absorb more carbohydrates. So far, there's no research in humans that shows this, but a lot of gut training in the past, particularly the work from Monash University, that showed really, really positive effects of gut training. So this is a fairly long plan, but it helps athletes to build up a bit of a tolerance over that time. What I would say is, I'll go through the instructions really quickly, but just to point out really quickly first, the bottom you've got a number of different tabs. You've got gut plan details, gut training plan, gut tracker, sweat rate tracker, sports nutrition products. So I'll click on each one and give them a brief description. First page you'll find is the gut plan details, which is a little bit of an opening there, a little bit about hydration, sweat testing, and then a little bit of how to use the rest of the plan. I'll move on really quickly to the actual main event, which is the gut training plan. So this looks like this. You as an athlete, you don't really need to do very much to these plans and trackers. More than anything, it's just following the instructions, particularly this one. So this is how the plan is laid out for you. And what you will find on each week is a number of weeks down the left side, and this takes you up to 12 weeks in the plan, and then there's one additional week, which I will come on to. You enter the dates of each stage, so whenever you want to use this, if you want to start next week or next month, you can start to put the dates in and start to plan that across each week. There's a number of different stages, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The duration of each stage, how many days a week you'll be gut training, the activity session in hours. So this is an instruction to you of how many hours that activity should be and how much you should be taking on. This is the target carbohydrates per hour. So again, if it's a 2-hour session, you want to be aiming for 80 grams in total, so 40 grams per hour. As you notice over weeks, this builds up all the way to 110. There's a target fluid rate there as well. Certain foods to eat whilst you're on your activity or around that. Type of drinks to take, any solid training foods, pre-training nutrition, any electrolytes to put in your drink, and some instructions there. What the effect of this will have on your gut. And then a little bit about what to eat in your day-to-day diet. A little bit about remind you to check in each week. And then a little bit about what we're testing for each week. So to come back, so the only place you need to put any info is there on the dates of each stage, and then any sports nutrition products you use on that week. So if it's SIS, Morton, Velo Forte. Once you start to go through the weeks, you'll notice that this kind of gradually builds up. Along this row, you will find a number of instructions. So it'll tell you what kind of foods you should be eating, what you should eat before training, whether it's a big meal or a small meal. So this goes all the way up to 110. Ideally, what we want to see is you being able to go on an ultra race and easily take in 90 grams of carbs an hour. However, we aim for 110, so you've got a bit of a buffer zone, which means you'll be much more comfortable at 90. As the weeks progress as well, we want you to build up to being able to take this on a longer run rather than a short one. Because again, there's one thing taking in 90 grams of carbs an hour over 1 hour, but actually, what about in race conditions in an ultra when it's over 4 hours? How's your gut going to tolerate this? So that takes up to 12 weeks in total, so it's across 3 months. The final week, week 13, is basically putting a race simulation together. So, you'll do a long run, mimic the race, think about some of the solid foods on that race and give it a good test. Put 13 plus there, as you might want to do this several times or over a number of weeks. In addition, you'll want to take on one run each week where you continue to do some gut training and keep that tolerance high. So that's the plan overall. We go down to the gut tracker. So this is where you will track each training activity and your symptoms. So 0 to 10 will be your symptoms. So 0 is no symptoms at all, whereas 10 is extreme symptoms. Anything over 5 is severe. When it gets to this point, I'd say maybe start to stop training. And, it could be something a little bit more severe that we, might not want to progress with, and then we'll start to get to the root cause of what that problem is. So this just outlines each stage as we go through. So all the way up to stage 6, which is a race simulation. It's got the outline of the carbohydrates for each stage there. It's got the weeks in there. It's got the days of the week. So, week 1 is only 2 days a week. Week 2 is only 2 days in that week, because they're both part of stage 1. If you want to put an additional day in, if you feel you need it, then there's room to do that. All you really need to do is put in the date of each training session on there. Each week, check in, and there's a little reminder to give you there just to use that drop-down menu. So just send me a WhatsApp message. Give me some details of how it went or any issues, and we can start to discuss those. For each session then, simply use a drop-down menu to report the severity of any symptoms. So again, on a normal run, you might expect a certain amount of belching. You might expect flatulence a little bit. So if you do get that, if it's just kind of normal symptoms, either just put, 1 to 2 as mild symptoms. So simply, let's go 1 for that, 1 for that. Later in the run, what I felt was urge to defecate, which was quite strong, and I need to turn around and go home. So that was 4. Any other symptoms? Felt a little bit dizzy. So 3. So what that gives us is a total score at the bottom. So in terms of performance, what we can do is start to review that figure each week as it builds up, and look at where that was. Again, might think, well, that was all manageable, wasn't too bad. The level of tolerance was fair, so I felt 4 in terms of comfortable. So then in your own words, describe how you felt there. So put that for each session. And then also in terms of nutrition products, the level of taste fatigue. So is it high, moderate, or low? So basically, did you get sick of eating the same thing? Did you not like the flavour? This will give you a good opportunity to start to isolate some of the products you really like against some of those you don't. If you put in the wrong score for anything, or you want to change your mind, simply click on it, delete, and it'll set it back to 0. So any of these drop-down menus which you don't drop down, it will automatically create 0. So you don't need to go for each one. So for every activity session, simply, keep a track. Anything you felt, like nausea, was it pretty high? You felt like you were going to puke. 4, maybe 6 if you did puke. List those in there. And again, what we can do with this is track it week to week. Once we get through to the end, again, there's the stage 6 of race simulation. So you can put your own dates and week on for this if need be. You might do one run, you might do several, but it's certainly something you can take on and start to build up, and hopefully you've got a good tolerance by then. Next tab is a sweat rate tracker. So this is really important. So again, excuse me, in terms of hydration, I see many athletes who are having gut symptoms because they're poorly hydrated and they're in a dehydrated state. So we want to stop this from the start. However, many ultra athletes live, within the fear of getting hyponatremia, which is basically overhydration. What I would say on many ultra races, the amount of time and distance between a checkpoint, will really limit the chances of getting overhydrated, particularly in terms of the heat as well and how much hydration you need to take on. The only time you might take on too much hydration is really on a kind of 24-hour track event. Across any ultra, you'll be taking in a lot of fluids. But again, we want to stay properly hydrated to make sure we've got proper gut function and we're able to perform at our best. So there's kind of two schools of thought. There's people who say drink to thirst, and there's other people who say, use planned hydration. For me personally, I like to be somewhere in the middle. If you're drinking to thirst, when you get thirsty, that thirst is a response to you being dehydrated. So you're already in a dehydrated state at that point. Rather than kind of programming everything in and drinking, to the milliliter, actually, we can sort of fall in the middle and drink to thirst and kind of keep thirst at bay. But also, if we understand what our sweat rate is, we know if we possibly approaching drinking too much or if we're drinking too little. So if our sweat rate is for a certain temperature, 800 milliliters an hour, but we've only drunk 200 mil, actually we've got the security and the safety and the confidence to know that you can add a lot more fluid to that, and start to stop dehydration before it starts. So again, it's just giving you the information, the data to make your race more successful and for you to take charge and control of your race nutrition and hopefully sort any gut issues out you've got. So to describe this, sweat rate testing can be fairly complex because, all races are going to be maybe at different intensities, different gradients, different terrain, but certainly at different temperatures. There might be, it might be a warm day with a cold wind, or, as I've found at UTMB before now, when you start in Chamonix, it's 30 degrees, but in the mountains in the middle of the night, it can drop to 0 temperature. And that means that you will sweat differently in terms of what your sweating rate is. So if you're planning to thirst, then the start of a race in 30 degrees is going to be very different than in the mountains. So this sweat rate tracker is basically creating a data set. So this is for you to collect as much data as possible and start to build this up so you've got that information to make the right decisions at the right time. So I've put, a preloaded test in here. So if I go through this, you simply put the date of your activity, you put the time it was at, then all you need to do is weigh yourself before you go for a run. If you can do this naked or just in underwear, that's best, because what happens if you go for a run and then you come back and you're still wearing all your sports kit, that sports kit is going to be full of sweat, and it will not track your weight properly. So weigh before, then weigh after. Any foods and fluid that you take on board, make sure you weigh them, and then any urine output on your activity. So try and choose something short in duration, maybe an hour or 2 hours. Make sure you try and go to the toilet before your session, and then that will limit your chances of any kind of urine output. If you do have a wee on your run, what's always worth doing is either marking up a plastic sandwich bag with milliliters on it and basically weeing into that, or if you don't want to do that, do that at one point and then count and test how much you would urinate, per 5 seconds, say, and that'll give you a good estimate of that urine output. Again, if you find you urinate a lot on a run, scrap that run and try again on a different one. So if I put some details in, so let's say 1st of January 23, time 2 o'clock in the afternoon. My pre-weight is 73 kilos. Afterwards, I'm 72 kilos. Food intake was none. Didn't have a wee. The duration was 1 hour. So, oops, not popped up. But what this should tell me is, down there. So that's -1. So what that means is I've basically lost 1 kilogram in weight. If I was to put in like food, that'll change it again. Okay, and then urine output will change it again. So again, this kind of keeps track of it as you go. So again, do that as much as possible in summer, spring, winter. Check the temperature. Check what that temperature feels like, the humidity, how far you went, the intensity. So is it high, moderate, low, and your average heart rate. And then this will give you a good idea of what you sweat in terms of time, intensity, temperature, things like that. Final tab is sports nutrition products. So it's just a few products that I've put down which I find work particularly well. For me, it's some of the latest products. Again, if you've got any products you want me to add to this list, then simply let me know. Put carbohydrate to weight ratio. So again, ultras, you want to be taking the lightest pack possible, or even on training. So the lower this number, the more carbohydrates you're going to get bang for your buck. So again, if we look at the lowest number, which is 1.06, that's a Morton 320, which I wouldn't recommend because it's really difficult to mix into drinks, and you're better with maybe 2 Morton 160s. And then there's a number of different gels, bars, chews, protein bars in there as well. Over to the right, I've put a few places where you can buy these. So X Miles is UK based, but they will ship across Europe. Science in Sport and Morton both ship right across Europe. Sigma Sports ship across Europe. Wiggle ship across Europe. Then the Feed is an American company, but they will ship right across Europe too. So that is a good training plan. If you've got any questions, let me know. I'll leave it there, but as I say, make sure you kind of track each run, follow the instructions, and start to build that up. You might spend quite a lot of money on race products, but actually, whatever you spend on race nutrition means that you're going to dial in that nutrition. You're going to dial in any gut issues as well and reduce those, and essentially perform better and save money. Because hopefully this will stop you DNFing from a race. Thanks, Em.